It is time for the indie of the week. And this week is somebody else we saw at Salute, but tragically didn't get to. So we thought we'd highlight them now. And it is Sythopian Wars.
Yes.
So, Benjamin, this is an interesting one.
Yeah. So we first came upon Sythopian Wars and their sort of dark sci-fantasy style world. I think it was in 2022. Back in the annals of history.
That was at UKGE that year.
It was, yes. We went and saw their table. This was before their first Kickstarter came out. But they had this.
Wow.
Yeah, they had this amazing selection of factions, 2 factions that they set up to diving into this. Comes from 2 brothers.
Hold on. They had this amazing selection of factions. 2 factions.
With more to come. And I was about to talk about the miniatures, thank you very much.
If you wait to the end of the sentence, Lloyd, it makes more sense.
But it doesn't make any sense. The amazing array of factions.
It's
2 factions.
Because you stopped in mid-sentence.
So they had the Confederation.
Okay, let's go. Let's hear it.
That's why they call it a sentence.
They had the Confederation and the Asylumists, but they were also working on the host and a couple of more that they've got waiting in the wings. But yes, they had a successful Kickstarter campaign where they were able to bring their starter set to life and the core miniatures for both of those 2 initial factions, so the Asylumists and the Confederation. They also showed us some stuff for things like the host, the Jakaran, and all the rest of them as well. And this was the starter set that they initially developed. So the range is kind of, think 32 mil heroic, but all the models are much bigger than that. So they come in around sort of like 35 millimeter to 40 mil. So big chunky walkers and all that kind of thing.
It's good to know that, because when I immediately looked at this, I was getting was it Antares sort of vibes off this?
Gates of Antares.
Gates of Antares vibes. So you're telling me the models are bigger than that then?
Yeah, they're big chunky boys.
Even your standard troopers?
Yeah, so they're coming in around that kind of like 35 millimeter height. They're big constructs and all sorts of different things like that. So you have the Confederation forces, which is sort of like, I mean, it's weird to say the good guys because there are no real good guys in Sythopian Wars, but this is like think of them as sort of like humanity effectively. But essentially, as they've gone through, they've decided we don't need to keep these people walking around in their meat suits. Let's put them inside big mechanical constructs like this.
And they have never been happier.
Exactly. And send them out into the battle. You'll have noticed on their core troops, so the dudes with sort of like their rifles and things.
Yeah.
If you go back to that one, they have those screens in front of their faces.
I have an idea for them.
You're going to put like little smiley faces on them.
No, I thought if you put a blob of paint on there and then put like a thumbprint on, as if it's their own fingerprint sort of thing representing them, would be kind of freaky.
But apparently in the lore, it's kind of like a Big Brother is watching you style thing. So that's where like the face of like their general or whatever, or the face of an individual is on there. And they kind of like go, you need to walk into battle. You must fight for our city and all that kind of thing.
They're very similar to Kane from RoboCop 2 is what they are.
And so there's always this kind of like omnipotent presence amongst them, sort of watching over what they do on the battlefield. And they're almost effectively this huge clanking section of like convicts and troopers that have been sort of pushed into the heart of battle. On the other side of things,
you have RoboCop 2. That's awesome. You could rip your head off for a can of beans.
You must comply. You've also got these guys, which is the Asylumists. So these are huge cities that are just filled with people who have gone off the deep end, and they are like cannibals and all sorts of different things like that. And they've meshed together their bodies, their sort of like human bodies, with mechanical bits and pieces, and they just effectively get thrown into a big corpse grinder of combat on the tabletop. So they are just maddened, crazy machines that sort of walk forward and tear you to pieces and things. So as I said, no real good guys when it comes to Sythopian Wars. These are the initial factions that they came up with and developed and brought to the Kickstarter and onto the tabletop. All the miniatures, I should say, are developed in resin, so you're about to get them as nice little resin miniatures for you to drop onto the tabletop. So there's a good option there. They do also do STL files as well. So if you're interested in picking up stuff digitally and printing it to add to your armies, you can do. So you can use those for personal means and all that kind of stuff, which is really good. And as I say, they've expanded the range and developed it with
they look metal.
Images. Yeah, but no, that's just the renders. Those ones, just to show you just so that it's different from the rest.
We'll say there's even a standee.
There's even a print and play
to test the game, which is kind of funky.
As I said, we sort of showed off a little bit of a preview of them earlier. They are also doing more factions. So their Kickstarter, which is coming up later this summer, potentially towards the end of summer, is going to look at developing the host, which is that sort of weird abomination style, creepy, gribbly faction. I think every game needs to have something like that, and they're going to be dropping into the mix, which will be quite cool. The other thing that's quite nice about this, and you can see it from what Jerry's looking through here.
Oh, I don't like that at all. It's like an iron lung.
Yes.
Just lying there.
Yeah, he's lying backwards, looking up. Yeah.
Yes.
That freaks me out.
Yeah. Well, there you go. They've immediately won you over with the weirdness of painting that one, I suppose. But the thing that's quite nice, and you can see what Jerry's looking at here, is that all of the rules are free for you to download and play. So if you wanted to get something like that print and play set and have a go at the game, Sythopian Wars, you can do already. They've got all of the rules for the initial 2 factions, but then they've also got all the playtest stuff for different factions. So if you want to go and find miniatures, you can do and bring them to the tabletop and just sort of like, well, I'll use these as stand-ins to represent some of the other creatures. I mean, that's some of the stuff that's coming up as part of the Kickstarter later this year, which just looks wild.
So I know they say corpse crabs, but I get a very tick feel from these big blood bags wobbling along.
Oh, that would be a cool way of painting, especially with the burst one.
Let's not say that again. Blood bags.
Blood bag burst.
Blech. It's up there with moist. You might as well say moist bags.
Squamous. Don't use squamous enough, I feel, in life. Somewhere
Del Toro is really liking the look of these miniatures. They've got that kind of vibe to them. The game itself is pretty cool. So it's all done off a D6 system, so it all just runs off your standard dice. And the way that it works is you assign commands to particular units. Units can be given multiple commands per turn, so it's kind of like you say, oh, these guys are going to run, etc., etc. These guys are going to shoot. You can apply multiple orders to certain units, but certain times you'll get like a limit to how much they can do. So, like for example, they might get a shoot ban or something effectively at the end of the turn, so they can't do that again. But you could move multiple times or do special actions and that kind of stuff. The actual then fighting is done on like as I say, with D6s. You roll underneath a stat. In most cases, it's the resolve of the unit, and then whether or not you're shooting or attacking, you do different things based on the force damage of your weapons. There's some cool stuff in there in terms of like mechanics when it comes to sort of shooting. So with shooting, you have to lock on to a target before you then do the damage to them, because all these weapons are meant to be like new age strange technology and they haven't quite grasped how they work, so they have to like control them and then aim them at the right place, and then you shoot your targets and you do damage to them. In combat, it's just like a bloodbath. So when you get up close, you are just ripping people apart. Don't have to worry about locking.
Are you rolling for wounds then? Because like if you've already rolled to target them and are then
you roll to target, and then you do damage based on the weapon's force value effectively. So you roll lock on and then you do damage based on that.
So you get to celebrate twice. You go like lock on and go, and then you do the damage and go again.
The cool thing as well is that you can't do more damage than what you've locked onto. So it kind of has that nice sort of follow on to it, which I think is quite a nice little thing. They've really delved into all sorts of interesting things in terms of the mechanics and the activation things. You've got reactions in there as well. So it's not just kind of like I do all my turns and then you do all yours. So there's like a back and forth between people, and then you got the reactions. There's another nice little thing that they've added in as a rule called the spoil of war. So spoils of war. So if you go first, obviously the second player will have the last activation. If they choose to keep that activation as one and not a reaction, they get to do something in their turn that the opponent cannot do anything against, effectively, because they don't have any tokens left. So it's a really nice thing of like, oh, I'll wait, and then I'll do this really big hit at the end of the turn. This is kind of like a nice balancing mechanic.
Show us the grey versions there, Jay, with no paint on.
Okay. The specifically those guys have an interesting rule. So the ones in the middle, then, if you're looking at the grey, where because whenever you assign an order, they get restricted the following turn. They are actually convicts.
Yes.
And you can choose to sacrifice one out of the unit to try and remove a restriction.
Yeah.
Which means you can potentially then spam a bit, but at the detriment of an ever decreasing size of squad. But that's countered by the fact that in Sythopian Wars, you can split squads down and recombine them. As long as they have the same name, which is something a lot more games should be doing, because you shouldn't be seeing little 1-man, 2-man, 3-man squads
why would
running
you
around.
Not join the other
why would they not all get back together?
That does annoy me, especially in Saga, for example.
Yeah. So that's kind of funky. I like
because
how
you're trying to murder them all, and two guys leg it off the table and don't fight you. So annoying.
So it's nice to see them sort of jump on. They've done an interesting thing with the background and the lore for it as well. There's a timeline somewhere, and I've lost it now. I'm not sure how I've lost it, but
I thought it was just on the lore page. I think it was, but
there it is.
There we go. There, it's not on the lore page. This is a brief timeline of where they're up to, and these just contain very little, sort of small bit of text about what's happening at a specific point, which is all delightful. However, it begins with the awakening, which is everybody wakes up one morning and nobody knows how they got there. Essentially, the entire planet is just, who are we? Why are we here? Is this my home? So
I think I should build an asylum city.
So that starts off with a WTF moment. Are you some sort of petri dish of a planet that other aliens have done, collected and dropped you all together? And that would be fine, except then that the CERN, which is some sort of massive artifact come technology, exploded one day, ripping a massive scar in the world and scattering it. So if you were part of an experiment on this planet, nobody's really entirely certain. Yeah. Nobody's coming back to check. Their magnifying glass has been broken. Nobody can take a look at you anymore. Good luck, Skipper. Make the best of it, I suppose. So yeah, I like this because it's a very accessible way of seeing the sort of the backstory, because there's no walls of text. Then obviously within the lore itself, there's short stories in there if you like more.
This isn't necessarily Earth then.
Who knows?
Earth?
Could be.
Your guess is as good as anybody else's, because they've all just woke up here in this weird place. If it is, it's so far in the future to be removed from anything we know. But yeah, so you get the accessible, the quick and easy route in via the different ages. We're currently in the 4th age. It's all good. And then, like I say, if you fancy a bit more meat on the bones for the background, then they have all of these, and that's really nice because accessibility of fantasy and sci-fi backgrounds for new games is often a problem. Simply because you either hand somebody a novel and go read that, or
here's the Horus Heresy,
or alternatively you go, here's a brief summation, and then there's nothing else there. So depending on how much you like delving into your backgrounds, there's two just not quite extremes, but you've got 2 entry points there, whether you want to the more in-depth build-up, which will also obviously explain some of what the factions are up to and how things are going horribly wrong as well. I do enjoy horribly wrong.
I think they've struck a good balance with it. I think it's really cool.
Ooh, I know what I would do with those faces. If you drill them out and put a little magnet in it, you could have a selection of faces and stick them on like Thomas the Tank Engine for different expressions.
So when they're winning, you do the smile, and when they're bad, you do like an angry face. And then when they're dead, you put a little poop emoji on them.
This for the who do we call them, the convicts again?
Yeah.
Surely it'd be easier just to hollow all those out and put tiny little LCD screens in.
But then you wouldn't have that old school Thomas
Blinky.
That is true. You would not have. You would not have a Thomas Tank Engine look.
And to be fair, I'd kind of like to do just a barcode on the screen.
That'd be cool.
Oh yeah.
Lean into that whole convict, nameless, faceless thing.
You are 3245.
Yeah.
No one cares. But yeah, the thing that, as I said, I think they've really struck a good balance with the miniatures and the design and the sort of way that they're developing it, having it all accessible as rules for free, and then having the print and play thing, I think, is a really good option as well. The fact that it's effectively just 3 guys, so a couple of brothers and their friend Paul, I think is great. So it definitely is in that sort of indie realm. And as I say, they are going to be coming back to Kickstarter with the host stuff and potentially more as well in the near future.
Are they going to UKGE again?
Possibly.
Were they at Salute?
They were at Salute, yeah. They had a demo table that they were showing off. There was a lot of people around there enjoying the game, so hopefully that helped them out as well. Very cool. So,
I just realized, back on the face thing, because I'm hooked on it now. We need to make QR codes and make them decals and put them on them and have the QR codes lead to something.
Oh, so like some story about the story,
each individual convict, and the QR code is what they were imprisoned for.
Yeah, just their list of crimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be fascinating to see where they go. Hopefully, we'll be chatting with the guys and also playing some games of it as well in the not too distant future. So keep your eye out for that, and we'll have a go. I know we've got a very early pre-production copy in the studio. Might have to dig that out, John, and push them around the table and see how it goes.
Yep.
But yeah, Sythopian Wars. Check it out, folks. I will be back shortly.